Hey, 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 good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to Joy Life Center Coaching and Consulting. We're about to start our amazing group. We're going to be talking about internal triggers today. So we got a couple of people holding in the waiting room. So we're going to go ahead and admit them in, and we're going to get started. Hold on a second. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Miss Denise. I see we have Miss Bianca chiming on, trying to get her audio together.
Wow. Wow. It's raining real good. Is it raining down there?
Yes, it is. It is
We need it. We need it desperately, even though it's going to cause problems.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
no, it's going to cause problems. Places that are denuded of vegetation due to fires. It's going to cause problems. So these nice, everybody wants to live on top of the hill in California who have the money to build on top of the hill. Wait a minute. Wait, let me take this. Let me take this. Let me put myself on.
Okay. And we're waiting for Miss Bianca. As she's getting her audio. Well, hello everyone. Hello, as they're getting their
I'm
set
back.
connected. Okay, okay. Yeah, we're going to be talking about internal triggers today. We talked about external triggers on Friday. So we're going to be talking about some of those internal things that kind of, trigger us to some behaviors, to some feelings that lead to behaviors, to some spaces in our hearts and our minds that lead us to these places that bleed outside of where we would like to be, where we like to go. So we want to take some intentional steps. And the way that we take these intentional steps, or one of the ways that we take these intentional steps in our lives, is to identify what are some of the things that takes me away from the path. What are some of these dangerous behaviors that I have, and what triggers them? Because we don't necessarily want to walk into these unhealthy behaviors, and we don't want to walk in these unhealthy behaviors, but sometimes we need to identify what triggers them. So before we get into that, Miss Denise, won't you go ahead and check in this morning?
Okay. Wait a minute. I'm coming back across the room. I'm still getting my notebook.
Okay.
I'm over here getting my notebook. Let me grab my notebook. Um, to check in.
Mhm.
You want me to check in, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Okay, checking in. It's been an interesting weekend. Saturday was pretty rough. Um, Emotionally it was pretty rough. Like a lot, pretty rough. But I'm alive today. It's wet outside.
Yeah.
I'm thankful. Everything ain't everything, but I'm yet here by the hand of God. And today's January the 9th. See, Monday, January the 9th. I'm
Yep.
trying to take notes of what we do here
Okay.
because everything is important. Nothing is insignificant. Some things might be insignificant, but everything goes into the pot.
Yeah.
Everything goes into the pot. So where I'm at right this morning, I'm grateful. I have not had my morning coffee. I feel like a wild beast. that has not been satisfied with the morning coffee. I don't drink it all the time. I'm more of a teetotaler. But I'm here in group, and so this is where I am. A lot is on my mind, a lot is on my heart, a lot needs to be done in my world, and I gotta get on it this week, and I gotta try to make a major headway this week, headway, because I have been out in the streets. When I'm out in the streets, I don't always take care of home. That's the
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
Because by the time I get home, I'm like, oh, lay down, it's over. You had good intentions, but lay down, it's over.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
that has to stop somewhere. That has to stop. There has to be some days that's dedicated totally to dealing with home,
Yeah.
and some day, I don't know. I'm gonna figure this out some way somehow. But I thank God that I'm here to figure it out. Thank God.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that check-in. It looks like as of right now it's you and me. Miss Bianca is having a hard time um connecting with her audio. So we're just going to go ahead as others are calling in. Good morning to you and good morning to all of you. We are talking about internal triggers. We talked about the effects of external triggers, and it's just like how Miss Denise said, you know, sometimes we wake up and we have a plan to do some things and things don't always turn out in the way that we want. And sometimes that can be an internal trigger, the disappointment of not being able to complete the task. You know, it could be an internal trigger to just say, have the efforts, you know, just forget it all. You know, it could be a internal trigger, you know, a failure, you know, you start feeling like a failure. It's an internal trigger of incompleteness. And, you know, if I had this or if I had that. So we want to identify some of the triggers. We talked about some of the external things that are in our external world that kind of affects us and triggers us to those unhealthy, unwanted behaviors. But today we're going to talk about those internal things. So what I want us to do is start to think about what are some of the unhealthy behaviors that I am determined to overcome in this season. We come on this line and we chime in, and I just want you in your heart, you don't have to announce that. I just want you to in your heart to identify, what have I identified that is not so healthy for me? What behaviors do I have? What routines do I have? What cycles do I have that are not so healthy for me, that now in my experience, in my place of maturity, now I can identify that don't work for me at all. Actually, this is like a kryptonite to me. This weakens me. This keeps me in that place called the same. And I want to explore. I want to grow. I want to live my maximum self, my optimum self. So I want us to just kind of think about what are some of the unhealthy behaviors, even if you just think of one. Because sometimes as we grow in our healthiness, this is when we begin to identify other areas of healthiness that we need. You know, as we continue to grow in our healthiness, we can see clearer. Excuse me, we can identify some things in our lives that we quite frankly didn't see before. So we want to go ahead and take a second to do that. What are some of the unhealthy behaviors, some of these unwanted behaviors that I have gained over my life or over the years? Some thoughts, some ways of thinking, some things, some ways of doing, whatever it is that is not benefiting me, is actually blocking me from going to my next. So after I identify that, then I want to take a look at what internally triggers me to that behavior. What is it? So before I can deal with the behavior, let me make sure I identify the triggers outside of the behavior that triggers it in action. So take a moment to think of that. And then I'm going to kind of share some things with you so that we can identify these feelings or emotions that can trigger us. And I'm going to read a few off. And after we read some of these off, and I want you to kind of, if it hits you when I open the floor, share how that's a trigger to you. And after we've read all the suggested ones, then I want you to explore, what have I noticed that outside of what Miss Jackson has read, what have I noticed that also triggers me? I thought about going back to my old behaviors, or I noticed that I do go to my old behaviors when this happens. And remember, we're talking about internal stuff. External stuff is the things that go on outside, when triggers of hearing certain songs, smelling certain smells, seeing certain things, certain people that you deal with, certain places, certain things. But those internal triggers are those triggers that are more internal, more emotional, more of your feeling self, more of your emotional world. So I'm gonna read a few of them off to you, and then we're gonna have some conversation on how these triggers trigger you into unhealthy behaviors. So when I'm feeling afraid, when I'm feeling frustrated, when I'm feeling neglected, angry, guilty, nervous, when I'm feeling confident, even when I'm happy. Are any of these internal triggers to you that trigger you back to those unwanted behaviors? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share. Okay, I'll read on. Let's see. Okay, outside of being afraid, frustrated, neglected, angry, guilty, nervous, confident, or happy, what about when you're feeling passionate about something? It's something about when I have a strong passion or zeal for something and it doesn't get met. Sometimes it could trigger us in some unhealthy ways. When I'm feeling criticized, inadequate, pressured, depressed, insecure, relaxed, too relaxed, or embarrassed, are any of those internal triggers?
Well, um, I think I've spoken this to you before about this internship I had, and this lady said she ran a group, and she called her group for some very fragile women suffering from severe mental illness to a greater or lesser extent, called unmet needs.
Unmet needs.
And when she said that word, I was standing on my feet in the office, and my knees buckled, and I had to sit down.
Yes.
Most of my personal life has been nothing but unmet needs.
Okay.
And it's sad, and it gets to me sometimes, because I know what I know. I know what I know. A lot of stuff in my life has just been flat out unmet needs. And that's what I live with, deal with day to day. I live with, deal with from day to day. So that's like, okay, it's almost now, as old as you are now, that's like your normal. Okay. And you don't want it to be your normal. You don't want that to be your normal. That all I mean, you got food, you got a way to make a living, and
Right.
and I'm grateful for that. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of my needs that I've needed are unfulfilled, and I've gotten to a place, as a saint of God, that there's a lot of things that are just not going to be dealt with until I get to heaven. They're just not going to be dealt with. Like, okay, I'm going to have to go on anyhow without that thing melt, because I've seen other people in the most in meltdown mode rest of their lives.
Yeah.
Because of unmet needs.
Yes.
But you have to figure out an alternative. Like, I'll give you an example. An answer to being the loneliness of this life, and especially on this walk, because I'm not much of a herder with a lot of females. I'm not much of a herder with a lot of females, because eventually it's going to turn to something.
Okay.
My experience with women, when women gather together, if it's not a prayer meeting, if it's not something that we're doing for the community, or we're doing something that eventually is going to turn into some type of gossip session.
Okay.
And that's been my experience, or some type of, oh, look at her, or let's ostracize her, or let's figure out how to hurt her, or how I've been in a place where I needed the support of the women around me in a sobriety in 1997. I needed them so bad. But when I turned around, the rug was out from under my feet, and I fell. And I know I had reached out. I know I had reached out. And I said, I can't rely on these people. I realized that for some weird reason, I haven't done anything to them. I can't rely on them. But back to what I was saying, that I've seen people with the unmet needs go into meltdown of behavior, stay in their addiction when they could come out. That you just have to find, okay, maybe that area of your life is not fulfilled, but you're going to have to find a way not to be in self-destruct or destroying others mode.
Yeah.
Some people not only do self-destruct, some people will do, I'm going to destroy others mode.
Yeah.
I'm going to destroy other people. And then they're the people that go around and they're looking for something and ways to hurt other people. They're looking for that because of unmet needs inside. I'm coming to some resolution in a lot of areas, slowly but surely. Well, it was coming anyway. It was coming anyway, and it took this catastrophic event to I'm coming to a resolution.
Okay.
That it is what it is. So unmet needs are triggered for me, or they're love. I would go buy something. In order for me to feel loved, I would go buy something.
Okay.
Now, this has been the recurring message since I've been on this walk, and I'll give it to you. I'll share it.
Okay.
Don't nobody want you but Jesus. Don't nobody want you but Jesus. I ain't seen nothing otherwise to refute that.
Okay.
And I had got to a place of, like, from an extreme level of lack of self-love and beating myself down to not like an over puffed self-esteem thing, but more like, chick, you better love yourself. Go buy yourself something.
All right. Okay. That's how.
But I've seen the destructiveness of that in myself and on a higher level of someone else in my life. Okay. And I was coming to the end of this anyway. And now it is fairly much over.
Good. Good.
A lot of my needs, I don't know, unless God flip the world upside down or something. I can't, and there's no way I can make up for the times when the needs were not met. I can't. There's no way.
Yeah.
Except I have to think about, Lord, just let me get the glory. Just let me get the glory. My time comes. When the soul and his body separate, Lord, just let me get the glory, and all of it will be worth it. Don't let me end up in the fire, Lord. Don't let me end up there. And just to get the glory, that'll be worth it. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. That is an internal trigger that a lot of people have to identify, those unmet needs. And what are the unmet needs that, like, I love how you said that I have to accept and fulfill them myself. Me and my faith, me and my relationship with God, they're either going to be filled divinely. They're going to be filled at my own hand, or I just have to accept that it won't be, so that it will not affect my life in a negative way. That's beautifully said. Thank you so much for that. Ms. Susu, I see that you're joining us. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about internal triggers, those things that are internal, our feelings, our emotions, things of our internal world that triggers our unhealthy behavior. On Friday, we talked about those external things. So today we're talking about the internal things, and I'll give you some of the examples of some internal triggers that may trigger behaviors right now. Let's see. But first, if you can just check in real quick. If I can hear your voice, let us know that you're really there.
Hey man, yes, I'm here, but I'm going to be on mute. So I'm listening in. Say
Okay.
hello to everybody, and I'm doing good. Physically, mentally, I'm doing well. Just a little pain, but I'm doing good. All right, checking off.
Awesome. Check it off. Okay. Well, we've talked about being afraid. Some of those things can trigger us. And you remember how the brain association works. We remember the stimuli, which is the trigger. It associates to the brain, and now we act out what we're doing. It's just like the Bible talks about, how when we conceive sin, we have these thoughts and these imaginations in our mind. If we don't cast them out, cast down those imaginations, cast down those things, what happened is settles in our heart and is acted out at our own hands. So we're trying to see what are some of those emotional triggers, whether when you're afraid, it triggers you to your unhealthy behaviors, frustrated, neglected, angry, guilty, nervous, even confident or happy. We talked about passionate, criticized, feeling inadequate, pressured, depressed, insecure, relaxed, or embarrassed. And I have one other column to share, but so far we identify that, like Ms. Denise talked about, those unmet needs, unhealed hurts, unmet needs, we look at those things and sometimes we don't identify what the need is. We just know that it's an empty space. And that's how come many times we try to put things in that empty space that don't fit. We try to put drugs and alcohol to satisfy the space. Promiscuous sex to satisfy the space. Anger satisfies the space. Drinking satisfies the space. Enabling satisfies the empty space. Whatever the behavior is, feeling self-important or self-sabotage, control, any of those things, we act out in behaviors sometimes to satisfy what hasn't been satisfied, to satisfy the emptiness. And when we look at this today, we say, hey, this is not what I want. So we want to identify what is it that what is it emotionally, internally, that triggers this behavior? And what emotional state is it that triggers this behavior? If it's any of these, Ms. Susu, if you want to share. And also I see we have a new caller that's calling in. It looked like Miss Bianca, but I'm not sure. Look like there's some complications with the phone. So I just checked to see. Testing, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, welcome back. I see you've had some complications. I don't know if
Yes.
well, welcome. You didn't give up until you got it.
Never.
I see. Such a tenacity. So yeah, we're talking about internal triggers on today. So I wanted to see, Miss Susu, did you want to identify an internal trigger that triggers you back to your unhealthy behaviors? Okay, at this time, Ms. Susu's not able to interact. Again, I don't know how much you've missed. I know that you've had a time. So have you identified any internal behaviors that trigger you back to some unhealthy behaviors? When you feel such and such, it makes you want to do your unhealthy behaviors. Have you identified, Ms. Bianco, what's an internal trigger for you? Okay,
If I may, real quick,
go right ahead.
it just crossed my mind, like overeating
Okay.
or eating the wrong thing or eating too late.
Mhm.
That's the one that needs to be broke for me. The
Okay.
eating, and I know what it is. I know what it is. I know, like I said, it's more unmet needs, and you try to fulfill it by a belly full of food,
Yeah. Yeah.
but or eating the wrong thing that day.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I considered after church the treat was go have some chicken, fried chicken. Why? And I was asking myself, what? Why are Negroes so addicted to fried chicken? Why?
Oh Lord.
Why is fried chicken so good to us?
Uh-huh.
Why do we love this? And it's killing us. And I'm sitting there eat chicken, talking about, and then I pull out. Wait a minute. I'm at the meeting. I had my little friend with me, and I pull out some carrot chips. I had carrot chips, and we're eating carrot. I'm eating carrot. And I said, would you like some carrot chips? No. I pull out chicken, and she looked at me, can I have a piece? I said, I told you to bring your own food. I told you. I wanted to tell her, I said, didn't I tell you to bring yourself something?
And that really speaks to choices. Like you said, no thank you to carrot chips, but to fried chicken, we have an impulse to sometimes really just desire what's bad for us. And even in knowing that, sometimes we still, I like how the Bible says, I set before you two gifts, one is life and one is death. And he has to even give us a hint, hey, choose life, just kind of give us a nudge. Choose life, because every day, we choose these same cycles of behaviors that are giving us high blood pressure, that's giving us a bad health, diabetes, we're dying from food. But yet at the same time, we see that the food, again, is temporarily gratifying to the emptiness of the need, that small hole that needs to be filled, that, like you said earlier, that unmet need that hasn't been met, and we're trying to meet it with food. We're trying to meet it with shopping. We're trying to meet it with enabling. We're trying to meet it with drugs. We're trying to meet it with alcohol, whatever behavior we're trying to fill that void with. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Wait a minute. Let me say this. And I was really thinking yesterday, I didn't do it because I know I'm not going to eat them right now, and I know it. But I said, you got to change. You're going to have to find your meat substitutes. So what I did end up purchasing was some veggie burgers. I used to eat veggie burgers. I used to eat veggie cheese, but I found out they ran up the price of the veggie burgers, and the vegetarian cheese in the Villa of Color is about non-existent. They used to sell it at the Ralph's on 120th, but they don't sell it no more. It's been years ago. I used to buy it, but what I'm saying is that I'm trying to get back to vegetarian options.
Okay.
Because I need to. I'm asking my God to change my appetite. Okay. That I ain't got to have all this meat. Let me eat my vegetables. Let me eat these mushroom burgers.
Okay.
Like take them big portobello mushrooms, and I used to take them and put steak sauce on them and garlic powder and bake them, a little salt and pepper, and that would be a burger for me with spinach, tomato, and avocado.
Wow.
And it was actually good. Now, but there's nothing like a big old juicy crazy burger. Let's get real. but it's time for change because I'm getting older and I don't want to be sick.
Yes.
And that's real talk. So I've got to, learn how to maybe even learn how to eat to live versus living to eat because I'm
Yeah.
feeling some kind of way. I've always been greedy since I was born. I was greedy in the womb because I was a big fat 8-pound baby.
Okay.
But that time that was a nice sized baby, especially
Yeah.
a little skinny teenager carrying this 8-pound baby.
Right. Right.
So I was greedy there. Thank you.
Thank you. And you're absolutely right. Trying to find alternates, they call it in some areas harm reduction, but it's all about making lifestyle changes. It's all about making lifestyle changes to what's better for us. And I'll read from the last column and let's talk about some of these internal triggers that trigger us to our unhealthy behavior. When we talk about being irritated, sad, excited, jealous, bored, exhausted, or even lonely, think about what are the power, because see, this is what we're identifying. What's the power of this trigger? What is it that when I'm going on with my life and I've made some intentional decisions, what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do, what is the trigger that makes me think about doing my unhealthy behavior again when this feeling comes up, when this emotion comes up? Maybe when I'm lonely. When I'm lonely, I feel like, you know what? Let me go and grab someone. Let me go and compromise my boundaries. Let me compromise the boundaries that I've set with myself for company. What about when I'm angry? When I'm angry, I'm out of control. So sometimes because I'm angry, I don't have the mental clarity to stick to my recovery principles. And now I'm somewhere doing things impulsively, just because I'm angry. Anger, a lot of other emotions ride out on anger. Research have showed that a great percentage of the time, your primary emotion is not anger. It's another feeling, but it rides out on anger. Also, when you're feeling guilty about something, sometimes guilt can be so heavy that it doesn't even, you're not even allowed to feel that you're worthy of making a healthy choice for yourself. Sometimes the guilt itself can bring you into a place of compromise where, you just consider going back to your old behaviors, and you don't feel supported. So sometimes we identify that some of our unhealthy behaviors, is a part of our emotions. And this is why we have to connect with our emotions. We have to connect with our feelings, know what we're feeling, recognize our feelings, recognize how it feels on our physical body, recognize how it feels when it's arising, recognize our feelings and not mislabel them. Know what this is. This is anger. This is jealousy. This is envy. Know what it is so we can do something about it. Because identifying the trigger, if I'm confused on what a red light looks like, then I'm not going to respond in the red light way. I'm going to respond in a confused manner and I can mess around and get killed. So this is why we want to identify what our triggers are, our internal triggers, and what they really are. We don't just want to smooth everything over with the words, I'm okay. We don't want to smooth everything over to this too shall pass. We want to identify what it is, recognize it, label it for what it is, and see what we're going to do about it. What can we do about it? Because if we begin to acknowledge and recognize the behavior and understand that when this behavior, or excuse me, when this internal trigger is in action, it triggers behaviors that are unhealthy for me. And if these behaviors are unhealthy for me, it triggers me back to a whole cycle and a lifestyle. Because every little behavior that we do, whether it's we call it big or little, regardless to what it is, as long as it's in action, it creates a lifestyle. This becomes our lifestyle. This is why we have to watch our thoughts. right? Because our thoughts become something. Our thoughts become our actions. Our actions become our habits. Our habits become how we're characterized. And our character becomes our destiny. So we have to watch what little behaviors that we do, because that formulate who we are, our life. So we have to start with our thinking. We have to start with identifying our emotional self, our feeling self. And as long as we can identify these things, then guess what? I can head off, because I know if I'm feeling lonely, if I'm feeling all alone, if I'm feeling anger, if I'm feeling criticized, I know that that can lead me into bad behaviors, unhealthy behaviors, behaviors that are not conducive to the lifestyle that I would like today, the road that I'm on, the principles that I live by today. If I know that that emotion is going to come and kind of have the power to kind of mess up things, then guess what? I'm going to recognize it. I'm going to say, I'm not going to let that happen. And I could do something about it proactively rather than reactively. So some things are just routine cycles. Some of our emotions, some of our behaviors that we're operating in, they're routine cycles that are predicated by our emotions. So some things you do are triggered by emotions and it keep you in that cycle. But some of these things are not so much based on emotional conditions, but they're very routine. I haven't broke my cycle yet. So it's routine that I get up and smoke a cigarette. It's routine that I get up and call so-and-so. Even when I said calling so-and-so is not going to help my life anymore. So some of these things I have to identify are emotionally connected. They're emotionally connected. Sometimes we're emotionally connected to a person. Sometimes we have soul ties with people, and sometimes we have soul ties with places and things. Sometimes we have a loved one that maybe has gone on to glory. They've transitioned over, and we have a soul tie with what's left. You know, we have an association where we cannot stop passing by that house or going down that street. Even though it caused you grief, the grief caused you to relapse. The relapse messes up your life. We have to identify that, you know what, that grief, I have not been able to deal with the outcomes. So I'm going to take another street. I'm going to stop passing by that house. I'm going to do something different in my life rather than repeating the same cycle. So I want to ask someone, what are some of the things that you have done in times past where you see how your internal trigger has caused you a mess up? Please go ahead, unmute your phone and share. Anyone? How has your...
Can you?
Okay, I guess that's my internet. Go ahead and keep talking. It's going in and out, so it's going to stabilize.
That was a big part of my childhood, the house that we used to live in. And when I went to high school, I was on the ditch party circuit anyway. And when I would go past his house, I remember when I was before he died, that you better not go past daddy's house. You may have to take the long way around to the ditch party or wherever we're hanging out, because if daddy see you, it's going to be some trouble.
Yeah.
And after he died, I would go past his house and I would break down.
Oh, yeah.
And I would break down. That was one of them, one of those triggers. I know that right now, in the midst of the catastrophic loss that we just experienced, that I'm in survival mode, trying to survive, and I haven't had time to really sit down and process anything as of yet. But in the future, I'm going to making a little time day by day to process what's going on and how I feel about it. Just a little bit, because it's big. And my theme song is by Tavares, and it was an album that we had when I was a teenager. And the song is called She's Gone. She's Gone. And that's what I'd be playing when I think of her. I play that song, She's Gone. And it hurts.
Yes.
However, I got to keep going. And one thing that she did give me before she left here, she told me how proud she was of me for doing the outreach work that I was doing, that I had been doing. I'm not doing right now, but doing the outreach work. So, I want to share that. Yeah. But them triggers of loss,
Right.
and them triggers of loss can do something to you. But I've met a lot of people that, because of the fact that they were suffering from grief and loss, were stuck in their addiction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're absolutely right. When we don't heal from those hurts and we carry the unhealed hurts with us, lots of times it has an effect, because now one thing we realize is what we won't dominate will dominate us. What we don't take the time to deal with, to get through, to heal from, to overcome, to be delivered from, whatever the need is. If we don't take the time to deal with that thing and dominate that thing is going to eventually dominate us, because it's an unhealed hurt. It's I have no control over it. So you could be at the height of your life, you can be in the best part of your life, and all of a sudden, we talked about splits. All of a sudden, here come that unresolved issue, internal unresolved issue. And like you said, you could pass by a house and it's triggered and it hurts. It hurts. So I'm glad that you've decided to take some time to face your emotions, feel that pain without trying to constrict it and or restrict it, and get through it the best way you can. And I hope that that you're successful in finding some grief counseling as well. Somebody that maybe can help navigate you through the pain. Because one thing that we want to always remember is that help is available. We just have to find it. Help is available for whatever it is that we need. Sometimes, we're dealing with addiction and we just want to go to church and pray it away, and that has been very successful for some people. They've gone to church, they've had an encounter with God, and God just delivered them. But sometimes we choose our way of deliverance. I don't want to go to the hospital anymore. I don't want to take my seizure medicine anymore. I don't want to take this anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. So I'm just going to go to church and I'm going to put a demand on God that he do it just like that, because I have faith. I'm a child of God, because da, 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 da. We have to realize also that God gave us physicians. He gave us help. He's not going to do everything by way of a miracle because we want him to. So I love how, we identify that there is help. And I love how Denise has always said that, I need to get the help that I need, and sometimes we identify that help can help. It may not be the help right away, because sometimes we may have to go through a few people, go through a few programs, before we get what we need. But I'm so grateful, when I hear people say, I'm going to find me a physician. I'm going to find the doctor of my pain, and not be afraid of that. Like with mental health, a lot of our internal pain, a lot of our emotional pain, comes from sometimes we need we don't have the balance that we need mentally. And that has been a stigma for people, especially in the color community, that you don't go to the mental health doctors. You don't go to a therapist. I've had clients that send the gang life hard, and they've talked about, that was a no-no. That was a part of the code that you don't go to mental health services. And you know, drugs and alcohol is very prevalent in our street life and in the gang culture and in home culture and a lot of the different settings. And it has an effect. It has an effect on how our brain operates. And if we don't get help for that, then we continue in that sameness, in that same stuck place, you know, not identifying that there's help. There's help. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to get the healing that we need. We want to, if my leg hurts, I'm going to my doctor. If my feet hurt, I'm going to my podiatrist. If something's going on with my heart, I'm going to my cardiologist. But something about our mental health, and our mental health has got to stay strong in order to carry out and sustain life. You may have many gifts, abilities, callings, you may have various talents, but if we don't have the mental health to sustain what comes with all that, then we're going to be crushed. We're going to be crushed. So now we want to identify those things that happen to us internally, those things internally that affects us, that pushes us, so to speak, or moves us back into that unhealthy behavior. Anyone else want to identify what are some of your internal triggers that trigger you back to your unhealthy behavior? Go ahead, unmute your phone and share.
Is stress one?
Stress, definitely. Definitely.
Okay, but stress would be my key right there.
Okay.
And when I'm stressed, then there comes the not eating.
Okay.
And I'm already a little eater, you know, on some days, and some days I'm a big eater. But I know when I'm stressed that it does mess with my eating to a great degree. A great degree. Now, I don't know, because I'm in and out this morning because people are here trying to fix a roof where the ceiling fell in. So they're here trying to patch their little job up because we're supposed to have a big old rainstorm headed our way. So they're here to try to patch it up real quickly. So I'm kind of in and out this morning, listening and trying to listen and try to talk to them too. But I would say stress, and stress brings on headaches. It brings on high blood pressure. You know, so try to learn how to deal with stress better because I didn't learn that growing up. I was one that always kept it on the inside.
Wow.
And then when I explode, watch out because everybody gonna get it that's around.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing that I dealt with down through the years. And so even my doctor said to me one day, he said, you know, I don't really think you have high blood pressure, but I do think you know you have when you stress, that's when your blood pressure go up. Yeah, so stress, you know, my head hurt or either like I said, it'll cause me not to even want to eat. And my body, I could tell like when my blood pressure go up, I know it's a silent killer, if it said a silent killer. But I'm grateful because when my blood pressure go up, I have some signs to know that it's up. You know, it may not be up. I even have that sign too, but even when it's up above where I would like it to be, it's something that goes on inside of my body to let me know, hey, check this. You know, calm down or whatever the situation may be. So that's what I would say. And again, I do apologize for just being so out of it today, but determined to call in nonetheless.
Yes.
Yeah.
No problem. I'm glad you're here. I love the determination, you know. It's a wonderful thing. And no, I think I haven't heard about the storm. But I received a text, something about a cyclone. I'm going to look into that, but everyone please be safe that have to travel today. So I'm glad that you are getting your roof fixed. Okay, hold on, guys. We look like we're having a little difficulty here. Maybe that's put my glasses on. Okay, I'm so sorry for that distraction. Please forgive my in and out. I guess because of the storm, there's a lot of concern that's coming through the text line and things like that. So we want to identify that in this time, if we are going to live according to the principles that we have set for ourselves, to break the cycles that are unhealthy for our lives, as well as to walk in ways that are more satisfying and bring us into a good outcome and expected end that we're looking towards, then we have to make some intentional steps. You know, I like how Denise brought up about the eating, how sometimes we have this void and we fill the void in eating and what we eat, when that's something that we need to be mindful of, because that's that, it's that immediate gratification. And we begin to build a life on immediate gratification. And once we train this brain to exude the dopamine, which is the feel-good neurotransmitter, which is a brain chemical, once it starts exuding the feel-good chemical, because you're getting immediate gratifications, what happened is you're going to start desiring them more and more. And so we want to be mindful and sometimes doing that brain reset, as we talked about, resetting the brain, because our brain has become used to certain things, like Miss Bianca was sharing about stress, and how she's learned to deal with stress over the years, over her lifetime, is to internalize it. And that's not healthy, but that was her immediate gratification, to internalize it. That was her way of coping, because once it was released and exposed to man, it wasn't good, because at the same time, it was a pressure cooker. The pressure had popped the top, and that's never good. So we have to learn how to cope and maintain. And so that's some things that we're talking about. If we identify stress as being that internal trigger that triggers that external behavior that stops your world from success, that stops your world from moving forward, that stops your world from walking in the purposed life that you have for yourself, and bring you to an outcome that you did not want, then we have to control on the ground floor some of these triggers that trigger us into that behavior. So in dealing with stress, you may want to take a look at stress management, talking to your doctor and trying to identify, some stress management techniques. I've heard you talk about your weight, and how not eating is a factor, and maybe it's the weight factor is there because the stress factor is still out of control. If the stress factor is out of control, like you say, it shut down appetite. So these are things, we're breaking cycles. And I love that you guys have identified these patterns. You guys have identified these patterns. You've identified these cycles, because if we don't identify them, we'll never know how to stop the madness. A strategist looks around to see the strategy and how to stop it. We find that we can stop things at the thought, identifying the trigger and trying to find where is it best to stop this thing. Can it be stopped? Or do I have to maybe just, when we talked about anger, we talked about, motivating ourselves before an anger issue comes about. An anger producing situation comes about. We have to encourage ourselves. Then another thing that we may have to do, we may have to identify that once it's happened, we have to do, control. We have to, excuse me?
Oh, sorry. Sorry about
That's okay. Thank you for chiming in, Miss Jenny. I'm gonna give you a moment to say good morning before we close. We're talking about internal triggers here. and trying to stop the unhealthy behavior by identifying proactively what's some of the unhealthy triggering. Is it something that you wanted to share?
No, I was trying to make sure my phone was muted.
Oh, okay.
I
Okay.
I just woke up from a late, early nap. I woke up way early, you know, this morning, and nothing. I was just, come in to, just say, well, anyway, good morning to you, Miss Jackson, and everyone else. I'm fine. I'm fine. I just woke up. I woke up like 3:30 this morning, and then my eyes just closed on me before I knew it, and I just woke up and see some messages or whatever. So,
Okay.
oh, let me get on here. I know I'm late, but excuse me for that as well. But all is well, and all is well, and thank God for waking me up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for chiming in, Jenny. And when you woke up, you thought about your group. I love that. I love that. So go ahead and put your phone on mute, because when your are open, that's a signal to me that you want to share something. So when mics are open, you may not hear anything in your background, but any movement, any hard breath is picked up. So, and remember, guys, these videos will be a part of a subscription, a paid subscription that, people can chime in. Maybe you want to review the videos. Maybe you want to be present. The time don't work for your work schedule. So you want to purchase the videos. It will be a part of a paid subscription for those that cannot be here. So that's why I say, please use a fictitious name and enter in with your cameras closed, because I want to maintain you guys confidentiality. Everything that everyone shares is so helpful. The group dynamic is a powerful dynamic of change. Iron sharpens iron. If I was to name this group, that would be it. Iron sharpens iron, because people are of effect. Jenny, were you trying to say something?
See, no, I'm just having trouble.
Okay, it's on mute. Right in midstream of your conversation. You're on mute now. So we're talking
Uh,
about internal triggers, and we're talking about,
okay. Sorry,
that's okay.
every time I like say done speaking and then slide back to your face, your photo. I mean, you speak and then it'll unmute again or something.
Oh, okay. Well, I think I can mute you. I just don't want to mute you when you're trying to unmute and share. So you're muted now. Thank you so much, Miss Jenny.
Oh no.
No, you're unmuted. Well, we're gonna move forward. Don't worry about it, because right now your background is pretty clear. We'll play around with that later on. You're back muted again. We'll play around with that later on. But yeah, we want to identify these internal triggers. So I wanted to see, does anyone else have you identified an internal trigger that triggers your unhealthy behaviors and take you back into the routine and into the cycle that you're trying to break from? Anyone, please go ahead, unmute your phone and share. Okay, great, great, great. Well, I'm so grateful for each and every one of you calling in. Please check the news about this storm that's supposed to come. It seemed like it's coming with some alert. So having us to take some caution. So please look into that. But as we close out today, I'm going to read from our Just for Today little devotional. And the title today is A Sense of Humor. I haven't read it. I just opened the book to it. So, A Sense of Humor. The laughter in our gatherings often surprises the newcomer. As a group, we appreciate the healing that healthy laughter brings. Even if we are deeply troubled, the joy that often fills the meeting rooms allows us for a time to have some fun with our recovery. Through humor, we can be temporarily relieved of our obsession with self. Life on life terms is often anything but funny. But if we can keep a sense of humor about us, things that might overwhelm us can be made bearable. How often have we allowed ourselves to be upset by incidents that, taken with a bit of humor, are not all that intolerable? When we become annoyed with people and events, a search for the humor in the situation can put things in a brighter perspective. An ability to find humor in a difficult situation is a gift to develop. So, just for today, I will look to find humor in adversity. When I make mistakes, I will find a way to laugh at the humor of my imperfections. Any comments to that? I love that. That's one of my practices. Not saying that I want to live in a comical world, but sometimes I purposely and intentionally check out with comedy or with humor. For one, when we talk about grounding, sometimes if I'm noticing that I'm becoming overwhelmed, I may find a comedy show, something that has nothing to do with my life, something that does not mimic my life in any kind of way, so that there's no triggers, so that I can get through the moment, rebalance back out, and then face the problem. What does anyone else use humor to kind of get through and cope with unbearable situations? Anyone?
During the time of the pandemic of the shutdown, I looked for stuff on YouTube, and one of the things that I found was Amos and Andy,
Okay.
which is a show that had been banned or whatever, that the NAACP, but it was hilarious. And plus, I had a friend that was a distant relative to the man known as Kingfish, Tim Moore.
Okay.
And I would watch this man carry on and clown and do what he do. And then I would hit my friend up and say, "Man, your great grandfather's a mess. He was a mess." And I enjoyed the Amos and Andy episodes. Helped me a lot. They helped me a lot.
Good. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Denise. Anyone else, have you used humor to kind of get you through, to cope? Well, seeing from the response, we would suggest it
Wait a
today.
minute. Wait, if I may,
Mhm.
this was a story that Bishop told. There was a man who had been given a diagnosis of cancer,
Okay.
and he went and got a whole bunch of Three Stooges and really funny stuff.
Mhm.
And he was at home and he watched them, the slapstick comedy,
Mhm.
and all. He watched this stuff for a long, I don't know how long, but they said when he went back to the doctor, the cancer was gone.
Wow.
At some point, the cancer was gone. His laughter, he laughed so hard. I guess he just laid up in his house laughing so hard at the antics of the Three Stooges and maybe whatever else. But I remember him saying the Three Stooges. He bought a bunch of Three Stooges episodes. Maybe it had been before the time it was all online. But the humor thing is helpful,
Yes.
because I would recommend it to anybody, because especially those that you are the matriarch of your family, you know, um, Miss Bianca, Miss Jenny, and Miss Susu,
Mhm.
and you too, Mrs. Jax. You are the matriarch of your family. Everybody looks to you.
Mhm.
So, like, okay, how the people you talk about they stuff, like y'all tell them, baby, this got to stop and da da da. And they say, yes, ma'am. and they keep going. Despite your best efforts and all of your prayers and all of your bailing them out, that they go right back to what they normally do and even worse.
Yes.
And it wears on you. It puts stress on your body, it puts stress on your heart, it puts stress on your blood pressure, it puts stress on you overall. Find you your life. I would tell anybody, find you your place. That human thing, that human thing, you can go on your laptop and find something that's screaming. Like I watched the Black Lady sketch, so what they had, I wasn't going to pay for it, but what they had on YouTube, the Black Lady sketch show, I screamed, I hollered. The Black ladies in the courtroom, I screamed, I carried on. I said, Lord, this is so stupid. This is so funny. This is so funny. And find your funny. Find your funny.
Yeah.
Find your funny in a world where things are not funny, in a world where like the people, the bad actors in your life and different situations are far off the chain. Find your funny.
Yeah.
And I'm reminding myself right now to find my funny.
Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Excellent. Wonderfully said. And thank you so much for those examples. Oh my goodness, especially when you shared about the gentleman with cancer and how he just laughed. Laughter is the response from the joy on the inside. There's something on the inside. The word tells us that the joy of the Lord is our strength. So laughter is just a response from the joy on the inside, that peace, that strength on the inside. So I like what Denise said, and I'm gonna resound that. Find your funny. Find what gives you that hearty laugh. Find what gives you, even with your recreational activities, find what helps you to just laugh and enjoy. They have this saying out years ago, all work and no play makes old Joe a boring soul, or something like that. Sometimes we feel like we just got to grind, we got to survive, but stop, give yourself the therapy of laughter. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Denise. Anyone else before we close out on this morning? Well, thank you all so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we're going to live free, because living free is why Christ went to the cross. And so we're going to walk that out. We're going to live our best lives. We got a new beginning of 2023. So we want to embrace it. We don't want to say, hey, another year. We want to say, yes, another year. So what can I do to be better? New Year's resolutions are great. New goals are great. New thoughts, new perspectives, they're great. We have to put something in place to catapult to the next, because when we just walk around aimlessly, that's when we kind of go by what we feel, and we continue to encircle that same mountain. We still live those same cycles of events. But anyway, I love you guys. I love you. I love you. I love you. Hopefully tomorrow you won't be multitasking as much, and we can all participate and get what we need for our 2023. So I love you guys, and I'll see you on tomorrow. Well, I'll hear you on tomorrow. God bless you all. Live free.